Hey y'all, I'm Rob from Way Nation. I had the opportunity to sit down with Jon Steingard, the former lead singer of the Christian band Hawk Nelson. Recently, Jon announced on Instagram that he no longer believes in God, and his post was picked up by almost every major news source. I was sorry to hear about Jon's post, so I reached out and talked with him about what led him to his decision. Let me be clear. The Way Nation team is not giving Jon a platform to trash Christianity. We don't want that, and he doesn't want that. The reason my team and I are doing this is because we believe our faith is made stronger when we don't shy away from tough questions and uncomfortable conversations. I won't try to reconvert Jon in this interview. My goal is to have a meaningful discussion where I ask honest questions and listen, because that's how we learn. Some parts of our conversation might make you super uncomfortable. For believers in Jesus, the first half might make you feel sad or a little bit awkward. That's okay. Addressing our doubts honestly and openly is one important way to avoid feeling isolated or discouraged. It's also a way for our faith in Jesus to grow more confident and joyful. We love Jon. Many of you love Jon. Eventually, I hope he not only believes in God again, I pray he has an undeniable, personal experience with Jesus Christ. So I wanted to start in and just ask you a few questions. How did you initially decide to follow Jesus? What was that moment like?
I remember back to a time camping with my dad when I was like super young, when I was like maybe 4 or 5. And, I remember having like, praying the prayer, my dad leading me in the prayer. And, as a teenager, I remember looking back at that and going like, oh, I guess that was my moment. But I remember hearing other people that had these like crazy conversion stories and feeling like almost a little jealous. Like, oh, they have this like amazing story of all this horrible stuff that was happening in their life. And then they came to Jesus and their life got better. And like, I wish I had that story. I remember wishing for that. And I, in my teenage years, I floundered a little here and there. But I remember being asked to like lead worship, not just be on the worship team, but like start being a worship leader. And I remember I took that really seriously. Like, okay, that means that like, if I'm going to be leading worship, I have to be solid. I can't just be going with the flow here. So I think that instigated a period of time for me where I was super dedicated. I was like, getting up early, doing devotions every morning. I was, really trying to dig into God and my faith.
Now, you were a Christian for many years, and as you mentioned, you've been a part of the band world. What were some moments you can still look back on and say, wow, at the time, I thought those were real religious moments, encounters with God?
I went for a long, like 20-something mile cycle ride with one of my best friends yesterday. And we just talked about experiences with God the whole, most of the time. And he's had some really powerful experiences with God that help ground and anchor his faith, right? And we just talked about that a lot. And I said like, it's hard for me because I'm processing my own feelings about God and faith and stuff like that. And I have no desire to say to my buddy, like, I don't believe that that's real for you. Like, that's not my heart. Like, I don't want to tell him that. I don't want to take that away from him. But it's also hard for me to say, hey, I haven't experienced that. And your experience is something that you can build your faith on. But but someone else's experience does not suffice as a foundation for your faith. So like for me, like I can't take his experience and go like, oh, well, that's a foundation for my faith. Like I can't. And I need my own. And at the moment I look back over my life and I don't know that I've had that.
When did you start to voice some of these concerns to other people?
Maybe around the beginning of 2019, when I was I had really become more unplugged from Christian music and Christian culture. The idea of getting up on stage and singing songs like Drops in the Ocean and Diamonds and Live Like You're Loved, like the idea of singing those songs, if I didn't believe them, was so terrifying to me, because I really value honesty. And I was like, if I find myself in a position where I am financially required to sing these songs, but I don't believe them, that's horrifying. And so I think that I when I had questions, I sort of pushed them down and I was like, no. Like, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to process that. Like, let's just stay the course. And I think for a long time, that's what I was doing. And it wasn't until I was sort of more financially free to explore those questions and feel like it wasn't going to destroy my livelihood that I even had the guts to ask myself what I really thought.
So what specific things on this journey, what specific experiences rather intensified your doubt?
Yeah, I went and I did I do film work now. And so I was filming a documentary in Uganda about this people group that are indigenous to a forest area, and they've been displaced by these gorilla sanctuaries that have been created for the silverback gorillas. And so these people have been displaced, and they had nowhere to go. They had no skills. They had no jobs. They had just been living off the land for generations, and then now they had no place to go. And there's hundreds and hundreds of children that are the same age as my children. And I know this is an age-old sort of struggle, and my experience is not unique or new by any means, but it really hit home for me when the thought of my son being alone and naked and crying and in the forest and dying alone. That is a real experience for a lot of these children. And I don't know what to do with that. My son doesn't have that experience because he was lucky enough to be born in North America to a comfortable white North American family. And so my son will not experience that. But these children experience that. That's half of them don't make it to 5. And I saw that and it broke me. And I don't know how to reconcile that with the idea of a God that loves us so much, he would do anything. And the idea, if that was my son, I would break every rule. I would break every rule to help him and to take care of him. And I don't understand. I don't understand why the God that loves us so much, he helps us find he answers our prayer for a parking spot when we pull into church. The God that loves us so much, he answers even our tiny prayers. That's what I was raised to believe in the culture I was in. And I go so God answered your prayer for a parking spot, but he's not answering the prayers of these children dying naked and alone? What do I do with that? And that wrecked me, as you can tell, I had no idea what to do with that. And suddenly all of the trite answers of, God gave us free will, and that's why there's evil in the world. And when evil entered the world, it disrupted the natural order of things, and that's why there's disease and famine and earthquakes. Those answers felt deeply unsatisfying to me. And I understand there's lots of people that find those answers good enough, and I just didn't.
In your post, you talk about your belief in God as a sweater. And I know all analogies break down in some way, but I also know that what we compare faith to, or what we compare marriage to, has a lot of implications with how we process it. So,
okay, yeah.
When I view my faith in God, and many other Christians would say this, is I would view it as a parachute. And so like the world is inherently evil. There's sin in government, nature, in myself mostly. And Jesus is kind of the parachute that saves me from this world that's, going down with sin. Like we're in the plane.
Sure.
It's going down. So when did you start to view your belief in God as more of an accessory like a sweater than a necessity like a parachute?
That's such an interesting question. I love this question. If I'm being totally honest, I may have thought about it more like a sweater and less like a parachute my entire life. There's been some people in the comments that say, you've never believed. And on some level, I feel like that's designed to like be a dig on me. But I look at that and I kind of go, I mean, that's possible. I may have spent my whole life with a perspective of God that was not what maybe you have, or what most strong believers have. I may not have had that.
One thing that really strikes me while I'm talking to you is that you seem to avoid some of the pitfalls of when I've heard other people deny God, or when I've heard friends decide not to follow God. And that's kind of what you said, where people will say, hey, I'm praying for you. And then those things are taken as condescension. And I'm glad you're avoiding this. But I've always wondered why the first reaction of a lot of people that fall out of faith is to shut everyone up.
Some people that decide to walk away from the church or Christianity or God or whatever are doing so because they've been deeply wounded by their experiences in the church, and those are real, and those are things that happen to people that are not high profile. Now, I should say that's not exclusive to the church. I mean, like, people get hurt and wounded in all walks of life. So I'm not saying that the church is the only people that, that has the only organized, the only community that has flaws here. So, but I think sometimes when people come out and make the statements like what I've made, it's coming from a place of hurt. And I didn't want to come out and speak publicly until I knew I could walk that out without anger or resentment. And so I sort of prepared myself that way. And I wanted the conversation to be fruitful and helpful and kind, and not just be like, screw you guys, like that's not my heart. Most of my friends are Christian. My family is Christian. I love them. And I don't want to invalidate their beliefs or their lives, and I don't want to shut them out. And I am open to having my heart changed in the future. Like I said to my buddy Brandon on our ride yesterday, if God is real, like why would I not want to know him? I just am in a place where I can't say that I believe the things that my family and friends do. I can't say that I've experienced God in the way that some of them feel like they have. And so if I'm being honest, I have to go, this is the truth of my experience and what I believe. And I'm genuinely looking for the truth. And if I'm doing that openly and honestly, there's no need for me to be defensive.
So there's a lot of fans out there, and a lot of people that know you that probably feel hurt. And so what would you say to those fans, mm-hmm. and also to the people who know you inside the industry?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you feel hurt, I understand. If you're emotional and hurt over it, I totally get it. And I'm not defensive. I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to convince you that you shouldn't be hurt. These are difficult questions, and difficult, things to process. And it's been heavy on my heart. And I hope that you know that I don't take this lightly. I don't take my relationship with you lightly. I don't take the experiences that we've had together lightly. And I also want you to know, like, if you've been positively affected by anything that I've been a part of, like that, I'm sure emotionally this feels like it changes that. But I hope that you can find the ability to process it and recognize that experience is still your experience. And I hope that you're able to hold on to that as much as possible. And I am grateful for the experiences I've had in my life with both people that have listened to Hawk Nelson and people in the industry that I've worked with. I'm grateful for everyone. And this, for me, didn't come out of a place of wanting to tear you down or take anything away from you. It came from a place of wanting to be honest, because I also know that there are a lot of people asking the questions I'm asking.
So what would you say to people that feel pressure to change where you're at? Like my view is more, it's God's work.
Yes.
That's going to be done in you. It's not my work to go win Jon. But what would you say to them, whether it's fans, whoever feels pressure to all of a sudden come in, ride in and say, hey man, this is the solution. Here you go. Just respond to that.
There's a quote from Gene Cernan. He's a NASA astronaut. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And he said, "The truth needs no defense." And to me, that's a beautiful thought. And what I've said to my parents is that like I've asked them, like, do you hear that I'm open? Do you hear that I'm searching? Do you hear that I have no I'm not out to shut God out if he's there. And if you hear that, then, and you believe that God is who you say he is and who you believe that he is, then this story has a happy ending. Then, like, if, you know, you have no need to defend the truth, because the truth will be the truth no matter what we think. And so, you know, I appreciate people that have given me time and good conversations, that have given me recommendations on things to read, that are praying for me. I appreciate all those things because they're kind. And I would ask that you trust that God will, if he's there, that he will reveal himself. And I hope that is some amount of comfort.
There's good news in that. Yeah. Well, Jon, honestly, I have prayed for you, and I'll continue to pray for you.
Thanks, man.
And I've really appreciated this conversation. And I would definitely echo what your friend said. It seems like you're approaching this with a lot of humility. And I really think that there's hope in that. And I believe that, you know, the Lord will do a good work in that. So thank you so much for talking, and thank you for your time today. I look forward to talking with you again in the near future.
Thanks for watching this episode of Can I Ask You Something? We know that as a Christian, you want to understand and love others better, but it can be hard to find biblical answers to the tough questions that get in the way. So in Can I Ask You Something, we listen with love to personal stories and expert opinions, so that through their answers and through their wisdom, we can become more compassionate, more loving, and more confident as we follow Jesus. If you have a question, or you're in a situation that's really difficult or maybe taboo, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you around.